I'm Paula Park, Senior Director, Housing Policy, Research and Monitoring. Okay, well, the Housing Policy Research and Monitoring branch falls under the ambit of the Housing, Urban Renewal and Projects portfolio of the ministry. And our strategic objective is to enable the development of suitable policy and legislative instrument towards achieving Vision 2030 goal, which is safe, sanitary, and affordable housing for all Jamaicans. So that in a broad nutshell is our objective. We're a team of 10, and we undertake core functions such as the revision and amendment of housing-related policies and legislation. We also undertake socioeconomic surveys in various communities and settlements, depending on the challenges at the time. And we facilitate our housing agencies in the development of housing solutions that redounds to the benefit of our populace through undertaking submissions for initial approvals, etc., among many other areas. Well, as you are all aware, Vision 2030 National Development Plan, the fundamental vision is to make Jamaica a place to raise families, live, work, and do business. And while housing is a component of the economy, is not only a component of the economy, but is a very critical, essential, basic need that we all have, because we need adequate shelter, right? And what we do in our branch is to facilitate the provision of not just a housing unit, but adequate shelter that will redound to a better quality of life for our populace. So there are a number of policies that we work on. For example, the current National Housing Policy and Implementation Plan, which is not only a milestone for the branch, but also for Jamaica, because it's the first policy that has been finalized post-independence. But that policy document, it looks at a lot of the salient issues and challenges that we currently face in accessing housing at all levels for various segments of the society, because it looks at the social issues in terms of, so it looks at emergency housing, it looks at affordability, it looks at housing finance, etc. And that what is laid out in the policy document are some measures or recommendations to guide the sector in facilitating access, so we get back to access to safe, legal, and affordable housing for our populace. When we look, for example, at let me begin with policy. We have a housing public-private partnership policy. This policy document is a framework that guides partnership between the government and other entities, for example, developers, in implementing or building housing solutions at an affordable rate. One such development that I can point out is Catherine Estates, that a lot of persons are very interested in acquiring. That is actually a benefit to Jamaicans, because when government is involved, then we try as far as possible to ensure that it is affordable to you as a person. That is one. We undertake socioeconomic surveys in various communities, particularly in informal communities. For example, we have communities that are affected by natural disasters. We go in, we collect the necessary information, and that information is compiled in a report that would go to the various agencies and inform government intervention. So persons have benefited from that through relocation, through regularization in their communities, among other matters, and that go towards improving their quality of life. Right? That is through socioeconomic studies. And as I mentioned before, we facilitate housing developments through our housing agencies that falls under the ministry. One such agency is the Housing Agency of Jamaica Limited. We participate in the initial approvals process to have it approved so that the agency can now move forward in implementing housing solutions for our populace. One of our main achievements is the promulgation of the National Housing Policy, as I mentioned before, an implementation plan. It's our first national housing policy that has been finalized post-independence. And as I mentioned before, it speaks to salient issues and recommendations that can guide the sector in moving forward and getting us to that vision of having safe, legal, affordable housing solutions for all Jamaicans. Another one that I can mention is legislative. For many years, persons needed to come up with a 10% or 15% deposit to buy their homes. Now, when we work together to amend the Mortgage Insurance Act that is administered by our Jamaica Mortgage Bank, which falls under the ministry, that now through partnership with some financial agencies, with the financial sector, persons were able to now pay down 3% if they go to one of those institutions that partner with JMB. I can also speak to the number of solutions. For example, what makes me happy is that since we have moved away from the negotiation, necessary approval, and no implementation, for example, of catching estate, it makes me happy to see that I was a part of, as a branch, we're a part of the process when somebody get their keys. And a number of persons have received their keys, particularly a lot of young people too. So that is also quite satisfying to me. We're working to build out our monitoring framework. And what gave us that platform is the promulgation again of the National Housing Policy and Implementation Plan. Because of the various recommendations and how comprehensive the document is, we're currently having stakeholder engagement sessions. So for the various areas, for example, housing supply, there's emergency housing, social housing, affordable housing, we bring together all the stakeholders that touch and concern that sector, sit with them, deliberate and see how best we can either improve the recommendation, amend the recommendation, and actually have a know as to what is happening in relation to that particular policy recommendation in Jamaica. So that is one main thing. So through that, now we'll be able to build out our monitoring framework. Secondly, we look forward to development of legislation for the quantity surveyors in Jamaica. I don't know if we are aware of what they do, but there are persons that you'd go to do your bill of quantities if you're building your homes and so on, to ensure that you have the right amount of steel and cement and so on that goes into your property, because you want to ensure that when the house is built, it is resilient, yes? And there's no legislation that governs how they practice in Jamaica currently. So what happens, that persons can pretend to be quantity surveyors and you give them the job and lose their money at the end of the day, because there's nowhere for them to go and license. And we are somewhat advanced in our draft bill from the Office of the Parliamentary Council. So therefore, we're at the point now where we're working through the bill to see if we can get it back and see how quickly we can move towards tabling the bill in Parliament, so that the QS now will actually have their legislation for the first time. The government of Jamaica, through the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, is committed to the provision of access to adequate, affordable, safe, and legal housing solutions for all Jamaicans.
The Negril and Brunel and Area Local Planning Authority is a local planning authority for the development order area. We straddle two parishes, Westmoreland and